Saving money is often presented as the simplest part of personal finance, yet it is the area where most people struggle the longest. Not because they do not understand the math, but because saving is rarely a technical problem. It is a psychological one. When you read deeply into personal finance literature, a clear pattern emerges. People do not fail to save because they lack information. They fail because saving forces them to confront their habits, their identity, and their relationship with time. Most books that endure begin by dismantling a common misconception. Saving is not about restriction, it is about control. Authors like Ramit Sethi, Morgan Housel, and the researchers behind The Millionaire Next Door consistently show that effective saving has little to do with willpower and everything to do with design. People who save successfully do not wake up every morning determined to resist temptation. They build systems that make the right choice automatic and the wrong choice inconvenient. One of the most powerful lessons repeated across personal finance books is that saving must come first, not last. The traditional advice, save whatever is left after spending, fails because there is rarely anything left. Books that study real behavior emphasize paying yourself first as a behavioral hack, not a moral virtue. Automatic transfers, employer retirement contributions, and default investment plans work because they remove emotion from the decision. When saving becomes invisible, consistency becomes effortless. Another critical insight from the literature is that saving accelerates when people attach it to purpose. Saving without context feels like deprivation. Saving with a clear reason feels like progress. Books repeatedly show that people who save for specific outcomes, security, flexibility, future freedom, save more effectively than those who save abstractly. The numbers matter less than the meaning. When people know what their savings represent, they are less tempted to trade long-term stability for short-term comfort. Personal finance books also challenge the idea that frugality means cutting everything that brings joy. In reality, effective savers do the opposite. They spend deliberately on what matters most and cut ruthlessly on what doesn't. This principle appears again and again. You do not need to live cheaply, you need to live intentionally. By aligning spending with values, saving stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like alignment. Another recurring lesson is that lifestyle inflation is the silent enemy of saving. As income increases, expenses tend to follow automatically. The books emphasize that this is not a character flaw, it is human nature. Effective savers anticipate this tendency and build friction into spending increases. They raise savings rates alongside income. They delay upgrades. They let time test new desires before acting on them. This restraint compounds quietly, creating a widening gap between earnings and expenses that fuels long-term security. The literature also reframes emergency funds, often misunderstood as pessimistic. In reality, books show that emergency savings are confidence tools. When people have a buffer, they make better decisions. They are less likely to accept bad jobs, sell investments in panic, or rely on high-interest debt. Saving, in this sense, is not about preparing for disaster, it is about preserving choice. Choice is the real dividend of saving. Another powerful theme is the role of identity in saving behavior. People who see themselves as bad with money act accordingly. Books emphasize identity-based change, becoming someone who saves rather than someone who tries to save. This shift is subtle but profound. When saving becomes part of who you are, decisions require less negotiation. You are no longer resisting spending, you are expressing a value. Personal finance literature also highlights the importance of visibility. What you measure, you improve. Savers who track progress not obsessively, but consistently, are more engaged and more motivated. Watching savings grow reinforces behavior, especially in the early stages when amounts feel small. The book stressed that early savings are not about size, they are about momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds consistency. Another lesson that surfaces repeatedly is that saving is not linear. There are seasons of rapid progress and seasons of stagnation. Life intervenes, income fluctuates, expenses spike. Books that respect reality encourage compassion during these periods. The worst mistake is not slowing down, it is giving up entirely. Effective savers adapt rather than abandon. They reduce expectations temporarily without losing direction. Over time, personal finance books reveal a deeper truth. Saving money is not just about the future. It improves the present. People who save consistently report lower stress, better sleep, and greater confidence. The knowledge that you have margin changes how you experience everyday life. Saving is not delayed gratification alone, it is immediate psychological relief. As readers progress through these lessons, saving transforms from a task into a system, from a chore into a habit, from a source of guilt into a source of quiet pride. The books do not promise perfection. They promise progress. They show that saving effectively is not about dramatic changes, but about small, repeatable actions sustained over time. And this is where the story begins to deepen, because once saving becomes stable, new questions emerge, not just how do I save, but what role does saving play in the life I am building? It is at this point that personal finance literature moves beyond tactics and into philosophy, revealing how saving underpins freedom, resilience, and long-term dignity, and how those who master saving are not the most disciplined, but the most intentional, allowing their financial lives to unfold steadily rather than reactively, building strength quietly in the background, like a foundation poured slowly beneath a house, unseen by visitors but responsible for everything that stands above it. And this is where saving money, when done effectively, reveals its true purpose not as an end in itself, but as the stabilizing force that allows every other financial decision to work. In the second half of what personal finance books teach, saving becomes less about accumulation and more about positioning. Once a saving habit is established, people begin to notice a subtle but powerful change. Decisions feel less desperate. Urgency fades. Time stretches. This is not accidental. Books repeatedly show that savings create margin, and margin changes behavior. When you have margin, you negotiate differently. You think longer term. You say no more easily. Saving, at this stage, is no longer defensive, it becomes strategic. One of the clearest lessons from the literature is that saving protects future choices, not future spending. Many people believe they save so they can buy more later. In reality, effective savers save so they are never forced into bad decisions. They are not compelled to take on toxic debt. They are not cornered by short-term emergencies. They are not rushed into selling investments at the worst possible time. Books emphasize this again and again. Saving buys time, and time is the most valuable financial asset you can own. As savings grow, the role of patience becomes central. Personal finance authors stress that impatience is one of the most expensive habits people carry. Impatient savers dip into funds prematurely. They chase higher returns too early. They confuse saving with investing before their foundation is ready. The books insist on sequencing for a reason. A strong saving base allows risk-taking later without fear. Without it, every fluctuation feels threatening. Saving first stabilizes emotions before money ever enters the market. Another theme that emerges here is dignity. This is rarely spoken aloud, but it runs beneath many personal finance narratives. Saving allows people to handle life's disruptions quietly. Medical expenses, family emergencies, career transitions. When savings exist, these moments do not become public crises. Books that study financial stress consistently show that the absence of savings magnifies shame and anxiety, while the presence of even modest reserves restores confidence. Saving is not just financial, it is deeply human. As savers mature, the books also emphasize adaptability. Effective saving does not mean rigidly hoarding money. It means knowing when to pause, when to rebuild, and when to deploy savings intentionally. Life changes, seasons shift. The disciplined saver adjusts without abandoning direction. This flexibility prevents burnout. Saving stops feeling like an endless climb and starts feeling like a rhythm that adapts to reality. Over time, saving also reshapes how people experience spending. Those who save consistently enjoy spending more not because they spend more, but because spending is no longer laced with guilt. Books highlight this paradox repeatedly. Disciplined savers often feel freer to enjoy purchases because they know their foundations are secure. The anxiety that shadows consumption fades. Money becomes a tool instead of a test. Eventually, personal finance literature circles back to a deeper insight. Saving money is one of the most reliable forms of self-trust. Each contribution, no matter how small, reinforces the belief that you can take care of your future self. That trust compounds psychologically long before it compounds financially. People who trust themselves financially make calmer decisions, take healthier risks, and recover faster from setbacks. Saving becomes evidence, not hope, that progress is being made. And this leads to the quiet conclusion these books point toward. Effective saving is not about perfection, frugality, or denial. It is about consistency, intention, and compassion. You will miss months. You will dip into reserves. You will feel behind sometimes. The books do not demand purity. They demand persistence, because persistence is what turns ordinary habits into extraordinary outcomes over time. So when you step back and look at saving through the lens of personal finance literature, its role becomes clear. Saving is the anchor, the buffer, the silent partner in every long-term plan. It does not promise excitement, it promises stability, and stability is what allows growth to last. If this reflection resonated with you, take a moment to identify one small saving behavior you already practice but rarely acknowledge. Recognize it, name it, build on it. And if you want to continue exploring how quiet financial habits create lasting freedom, stay connected, subscribe, follow, and return. Because saving money effectively is not about changing your life overnight, it's about changing how safe, calm, and confident your life feels over time.